Trauma does not heal trauma. Confessions don't always mean you're good. However, it does provide some betterment of yourself to willingly plug yourself out of the ranks of the insane. It helps to have good friends who do not judge, if there ever was such a thing. I really would not know. A computer would heal me faster. Just like it's doing now. The part that hurts us usually is when trauma surrounds itself with trauma, because it's made a system that is built around trauma. To navigate that trauma without trauma today. Those individuals do not serve you well. To correct each other now, if they, myself included, have not processed their own trauma properly. If they are still doing that, they need professional help. Someone who is professional in the way of its word entirely. Help meaning help. Not for any other reason than that. Because if you're motivated to help others disingenuinely, you become unctuous with a situation that is reverse psychology. You're basically a sociopath passing out candy, pretending that's the answer to it now. Because you're really good at convincing society that you're not a Ted Bundy behind that mask right now. However, I think it's interesting how psychology usually comes from a need to understand it, typically by those who have been abused. The issue with that is when the abusee becomes the abuser, sometimes it's just sit in silence, not realizing that's what it's doing now. If, again, it's not there to help because it's been overburdened by trauma, because trauma does not help trauma unless it has processed its own trauma perfectly. That requires a great deal of introspection by a great number of individuals who hold a great deal of influence, not because of anything they own, but because of the way they understand life is. It wasn't fair to all of us. I'm one of them. Is that okay? Yeah, but be careful, because you're dancing on a word that could be your truth if you haven't perfected the idea of it now, which is trauma. Trauma makes itself comfortable with trauma sometimes, not realizing that it's hurting itself doing that now, because it didn't have the words from a professional point of view to talk about why trauma needs to heal perfectly before it treats trauma too. So if you do not have a degree in psychology and have spent the time doing the things that we know are important to us because it is important to you, for no other reason than that, then you are doing a good thing. You are helping us more than you know. I don't care if you get paid for it. No one's going to tell you that's a bad thing, because that's part of a problem that trauma likes to project when it wants to neglect itself, giving itself excuses not to listen to the ones who have already done this for themselves. I did that too, so I know. But that's why we write books about it, to let it go, also to re-educate a system that needed that now. And it takes self-guidance, self-help. It's in the word self to go into it. It means you need the information to siphon out. For one, you got to see it. Then you have to digest it and go back in with it. Sit well with that now. Which means you have to be it perfect with your trauma. Because if someone like myself finds himself helping someone else for any other reason than just helping myself, then I've hurt you. So I did this for me. That's it. If it helps someone else, great. Is psychology good? It depends. If you truly believe the medicinal world is temporary for the perfect mind, I could follow that for a while. The problem is when I consistently see relapse in others without success. How did I succeed? Well, it was that, or lose everything. Losing everything doesn't sound nice, so I got over my addictions, which was covering up my trauma. My trauma, while not all entirely self-induced, was self-inflictions, sequenced in a line of events that I could not control because that's the psychology, what I was born into. Does it hurt them? Yes, of course, but that's trauma, and trauma doesn't help trauma. So in the spirit of helping myself, that's why I did this. Self-help means just that. If it helps them, that's great. Because I'm still in a zone that doesn't want to help you at all. That's dangerous. And that's what I meant earlier about putting a psychopath in a suit with glasses, writing on a, because they do it all the time. It's their own way of dominating the mind. It helps them feel powerful in their own way. Not all of them, but some. The more successful ones, you would say, probably. The ones in the community, not making money, just, doing what community does. That's what we should all be doing with ourselves. Because we're communicating with life at a social level that doesn't lock itself up every night with fences to portray something offended by society, because the psychology didn't help you now to understand your walls going up is why our hearts are falling out. It's in the psychology. Look into that. So that's the psychology for the psychologist. But to digest words, that's all you're doing. So when you're done, did you eat your whole plate? Okay. Did you eat any? Okay. It's up to you. You have to be willing to eat it, number one. Does it smell good? Okay. Does it, look at it? Whatever. But that's an analogy for a conversation that I don't want to have. Or I do. Depends on, context clues, because that's all I've got. It takes experience to get that. So I'm not saying everyone in a general sense is any of the things that I've mentioned, but in the spectrum, there's that, which is what I mentioned because it was a problem with me, with the others, for me in life, personally. So for me to succeed with my trauma, I had to realize that's what I was surrounded by and not get mad at them like I do. It's not their fault, just as much as it's not mine. That's the best I could give you. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means you have to climb through that with your own dialogue. Not get mad at society because it's trying to do its best with others now, And that doesn't mean that every successful psychologist that has a fence around its house literally is a problem. I'm just saying it could be. See how psychology, gets around that on both sides now? So I'm one individual that could go either way. That means there's options. I could make more options. But that's the beauty of a mind. If the mind overthinks, it becomes too complicated. So we shut down the general rule because there isn't one. One person that's seeing every character on the field and saying, well, this is how they move. Well, no, not really. Because I can make a new game with new characters and do it completely different. That's the truth. Sometimes logic can be counterintuitive if it believes that's just law. It's not. It changes with the recovery. And there are different levels of psychology for recovery and different methods for psychology for recovery, and all of it is for recovery, not a loss. Where we lose is when a system covers up recovery, pretends it's recovering, and tortures everybody for hundreds, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. That creates a rubbernecking event where psychology just turns off. Now you've created quote-unquote demons. Now what you've done is you've helped push away things that need to be talked to because they don't trust you. They don't trust you because they don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves because they never had a chance to trust anything at all. If you knew that, then it wasn't good to put up walls. They're the ones that need you most. They're not the ones that you treat like crap and laugh at because you didn't understand them. They don't understand themselves. If they could, you wouldn't have locked them up in insane asylums, raped them there, mind, body, and soul, for as long as you have now, and they still do it to this day. Arkham Asylum, all those asylums. Why are they haunted? Oh, negative energy. Why was there negative energy? Because they were cruel. They weren't helping us there. If you had an ugly child that came out deformed, it was easy for men and women of status to just say, you know what, I don't want that one. And instead of locking you in the attic because I'm embarrassed, I'll send you to this place where they get paid to do pretty much whatever they want to. It's like sending them to a science fair full of buttheads. Not gonna work out. I'm not saying every institution is bad, because we do need rooms for people who've gone all the way. But you gotta know the difference and how that happens. If you do, you're safe. Great. That's understanding psychology. The one that needs that now is the one that didn't understand that way. If they're incapable of understanding, there's probably a long laundry list of situations that apply to that. That's fine. That's when these things are appropriate. Does it drain us? Yes. What needs to happen is those children needed their families, and the mother and father of those children needed to appropriately love them. Most of the time they did not. That's where you get the hags. That's where you get the tortured cherubims. That's where you get the nastiness that plays into these things when you don't understand. Again, they needed a place to go. Did they deserve death? Maybe. I would say no. I'm only saying maybe because some of you decided they did. That they didn't matter enough to keep them in your heart where they are with you now. So if that struck a chord, good. That's psychology working itself out. Don't get angry at the messenger. Get angry at the one getting angry. It's not my fault you're angry with that. That's a easy way for me to see what's wrong. If you're reacting to it angrily, maybe you're at fault. I'm not saying that's a general, because again, there are variables for that. But I'm going to lean with, this is your trauma, whether you're a victim or not. Personally, we won't claim any of those labels, but we'll say it exists. If you're perfect with your healing, then that's how it is. So I myself would consider that perfect for me, So it is. Thanks. For you, I hope it could be. Again, I did this for myself. If it helps, that's why. I had to do that for you. So I could be with you now. To understand myself helps me understand those that are still hurting. And like a rub for that steak we're gonna get 4th of July before it gets here, God help us, we're not gonna die, because we've got equality in the mind for sociology to work out. We have to recover, not cover up somehow. You can't sweep children under the rug and act like it's not there when you're done. So, yeah. However that hit everyone, okay. If you're reacting to that in a negative, violent way, then you are an example of the psychology that I am talking about. Needs more information to sit calmly with my words now. You are not indifferent with it because you have not healed. But like a fever, when you get sick, that's the body going through the process. Is it painful? A little bit. Uncomfortable? A little bit. But these words are easy to digest when you realize it's your work to do now. Everybody should be helping themselves, self-help. The reason psychologists don't make it too far is because it's really not fair for one person to grab all of their trauma, to process it, unless they're really good at it. And God, I love you if you are. You are so strong for that. I am not. So you got to be honest with yourself and know where you belong in life either. There it goes. Because some of us would hurt others. Again, you don't want a psychopath giving you a prescription and calling that a prescription to love. It's not. Sometimes that's just a means to an end. If that's the way it's become, you've taken the human out of it entirely. It's become a process. You're no better than the algorithm. I'd be talking to my computer like I am now, to self-diagnose. And then it'd pop out something at the end, except I'm not doing that. I'm gonna hit off and go live my life now, because I didn't need pills or anything else, for that matter. Then, beyond that, it's choice. So, live your life, free your voice, know yourself. When you know yourself, you know yourself. You're not going to get confused by things bombarding the mind. So that turns off the psychosis. For some of those, being kind to yourself is the hardest thing to do because you're that one that turned into the thing you thought you were getting away from when you were little because they hurt you too. Somehow, it followed you because you could not. No matter what you did, you tried everything to get away from them and the way that it grew up with you. But the reason you do not is because it's you. You have to come back to the table. So if you open up the conversation, be prepared. It's not about being right. It's about knowing why we are wrong. If you know that, you're one step ahead of me already. You don't need me at all. And that's why I'm going to leave it. Because I have family who studied real hard to help me. Because they thought they could. I got a mother who thinks I don't love her. That's not true. I've got 2 children by 2 women. One high school sweetheart. One I married afterwards because I didn't know what love was yet and learning something new. Military, drugs, falling out, trauma. Where did it come from? Everything. Trauma does not heal trauma. The media would do well to understand that too. Bad news is not good news if you focus on it. That's why your ratings are going down. That's why everything's getting angry. And if we're getting angry, it's because we need these words too, to not be angry with you. which is what I'm doing now. I'm not angry at you. I'm not angry at myself. But somewhere in there, we're still angry. I know that sounds a bit confusing, but that's a fire putting itself out in the middle of nowhere for as long as it takes. Make no mistakes, we're going home. This isn't perfect here. We may have been perfect before we got here, but here is not perfect. This is not our home forever. This we're letting go of now. That will help you heal too, when you've done that. Good. I'd love to see the day we don't need a psychologist because we all learn to heal ourselves like we do. I don't want to pay someone for my time. I also don't want you to pay me for mine. That's just something that may or may not be forever now. I personally think we could all logically say it won't be. When that will be, I do not know. That's the truth. So where we go with that in our youth will be guided by us calmly. We are not separate generations. We are the generation now. Generation now. And that's what I'm going to name this. Because we are. Generation now. Free from pain. Free from hurt. Free from trauma. So I didn't bring trauma here to teach you about trauma. I took my trauma, got it out inside to have this conversation. I had this before I passed it out. This is what I discovered about myself. That healed my trauma. It's a golden ticket. Maybe you could too now. Generation now. Thank you.